Steelseries QCK lineup, consisting of the QCK Plus and QCK Heavy, have been some of the most dominant pads amongst Tier 1 esports since its release in 2004. It stood the test of time, and even with more and more cloth mousepads saturating the market, professionals stuck to their guns and their QCKs. Alongside Logitech and Zowie, they really defined competitive peripherals for the duration of most top esport titles. However, in recent years, newer pads like the Artisan Zero started to overtake the classics, as seen in the usage data during VCT 2024. Across all esports, the QCK Heavy did remain as the most used pad at 9% as of August 2024, according to ProSettings.net. Despite the consistent use of the classic QCK, Steelseries saw the amount of high-quality peripherals being released year on year, such as the Artisan Zero, and decided that a refresh was necessary. Enter the QCK Performance series of pads. 3 modernized QCK pads with different surfaces covering the 3 speed archetypes in control, balance, and speed, each with different surface textures and applications in different esports titles. This variety alone is something previously not seen much in the pad lineups of the Big 3, and shows a great step towards better products for both casuals and professional gamers. I will say, there was a certain beauty about the simplicity of going on Amazon and dropping $20 on a fresh QCK Heavy every so often without having to worry about too much else. But in an age where competitors are trying to squeeze every percentage of optimization out of settings and setups, this simply does not do anymore. In order to properly review the Performance series, I thought it was only appropriate to travel back in time to the roots of Steelseries with a fresh QCK Plus. This is the same surface as the fabled QCK Heavy, just with a considerably thinner base at a third of the QCK Heavy's thickness. I felt as though this would offer a more even comparison to the Performance series with their 3.5mm base thickness. The QCK Plus comes rolled up without stitched edges and a rubber base, specifications which by modern standards most would say are absolutely insufficient. But context is important here. For a pad which released so many years ago and is available for as low as $10 at times depending on size, it really is hard to beat. It features a relatively average glide speed with an average friction coefficient of 0.265, making it an almost perfectly balanced pad fresh out of the box. However, as anyone who has used a classic QCK for an extended period of time, they know its true speed profile turns far muddier and slower after extended use. The classic QCK models are incredibly prone to slow spots and overall wear and tear over time, as well as being highly affected by moisture. These are all characteristics which we don't typically associate with premium pads in today's market, but also partially what gave the QCK its unique charm. It was one of the most used pads with esports performance in mind, although it is fair to say we have come a very long way since then. The Performance series looks to take this charm and revitalize it. With subsurface stitching and a 3.5mm neoprene foam base, the Performance series keeps it simple but effective. The pads stuck to my desk exceptionally well and offered great comfort while playing. Each of the different pads have unique features, making them very different from one another. With a large variety of mousepads on offer these days, it made sense for Steelseries to adapt by offering up several different surface options rather than only one, with their balance option being the most similar to the original QCK in terms of speed and surface feeling, though it is slightly slower than the original QCK out of the box. The stitching on both of these pads is very similar and almost indistinguishable from one another, with a relatively thick and loose weave, which will often wear down over time, as we know from the QCK Plus and Heavies of old. The speed and control variants of the QCK Performance series are far more unique and different from the original models. The QCK Speed has a very similar compact stitching pattern and feel to pads such as the Artisan Raiden or Padsmith Genesis Pro, 2 top-tier speed pad options from enthusiast brands. It reflects this with a relatively low friction coefficient of 0.247 compared to the Raiden 0.23 and Genesis Pro's 0.244. This weave allows for a very fast and smooth glide, which combined with the semi-firm neoprene base creates a fast experience catered towards tracking-focused games. The control variant takes a very different approach, with a somewhat textured surface. This texture is nowhere near as aggressive as a Heian and feels relatively soft to the touch. With an average friction coefficient of 0.349, it is considerably slower than most pads on the market currently, providing an amount of control that individuals who prefer the muddy nature of the very worn-in QCK Heavy or Plus will gravitate towards. The benefit of this performance profile out of the box is that it doesn't require time to work in, nor will it leave the pad inconsistent across the surface, where areas of higher use towards the center will be considerably slower than lower traffic areas on the pad. The texture is also what gives the pad its controlled profile. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of textured control pads of this nature. To me, it feels as though the pad is really gripping onto the skates, which is usually something I would only attribute to dot skates, but on the QCK control, I felt this even on full-size skates. Yes, the pad is slow, but to me, movements didn't feel very smooth and it cost a lot of effort to initiate flicks. The Steelseries logo is printed on top of the surface, meaning that it has a different texture, which realistically won't ever be an issue considering its placement, but certainly something to note. One more thing to be very clear about is the packaging. The QCK performance pads come rolled up as opposed to flat packed as most people have come to expect from performance pads. Even after several hours across the pads, none of my copies laid completely flat on my desk, though I did not feel this as a perceivable issue during my testing. This has caused a lot of backlash amongst peripheral enthusiasts, but ultimately this isn't the target audience for this series of pads, which will also play into my purchase recommendations. The QCK Performance series give a new breath of life to one of the most classic pads of all time. I absolutely do believe that these pads offer better performance than the original QCK line and will be used by many professionals. However, these are not enthusiast pads. These are pads created to give the average consumer a more premium experience, which can be purchased simply in a store without needing to do extensive research on pad surfaces, thickness, performance profiles, and such. These are pads with performance in mind, but accessibility as a goal. If you are looking for the best of the best in the peripheral space, these pads will not be it. But if you are a gamer looking to move from a 6-year-old mousepad with drink and food stains that you've been using over however long because it's good enough, then you've got yourself a winner here. At $45, you will be paying a more premium price, and I do believe that there are better options out there at this price point, but they simply are not yet as mainstream as these Steelseries pads are. The true reason to get these is accessibility. Until more niche peripheral brands can be purchased in tech stores or on mainstream platforms such as Amazon, this will be the go-to option for many gamers looking for a simple solution and decent performance. So, would I recommend these pads? For a certain group of individuals, absolutely. Casual to budding competitive gamers with little to no understanding of peripherals have an easy solution here with 3 different options where they can consistently and easily get good performance. For true competitors, I would stick to more premium and niche peripheral brands such as Artisan, PMM, Curison, Wraith, or Laonda, which are only a few of the brands offering better performance for not much more money. Thank you very much for watching my review of the QCK Performance series of pads. I did get sent these pads out for review, but as always, none of that affected my thoughts during this video. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below in the comments which one of these pads you would be looking to get if you were to get one of them, and I hope to see you all next time. Bye bye.